let's go watch it in 2D. No, let's go watch it in 3D. But if we watch it in 3D, then is it worth the cost?
I gave every part of my youth to do a job.
Hello. This is Jake for 3D or 2D with special guest Bob, World War I history buff. Say hello, Bob.
Hello, Bob.
Okay, and today we're talking about the 3D World War I documentary, They Shall Not Grow Old. Now start us off, Bob.
World War I, as most people know, was the prequel to World War II. And that's how most people remember it. And most people in the United States, it's not a big remembered war because we were actually spent very little time in the war itself. We entered in 1917, but didn't put troops in the field until the last year of the war in 1918. However, it had a major effect on Europe, and actually, we are still dealing with some of the problems at the end of the First World War. Some of the problems we have in the Middle East to this day were problems started in the First World War. Now, Peter Jackson took footage from the Imperial War Museum and converted it, did all the modern tricks you can do now that weren't available then, and wanted to make something that just wasn't for buffs, but anybody could look at and see this was what the First World War was like, and he succeeded very much so. That you get an idea, and he lets the people that were there talk. He's using voice recordings from the BBC and footage from the Imperial War Museum that gives you an idea of what the conditions were like for these men when they fought in this war.
Yeah, some of the footage comes across looking like Call of Duty World War I, but it's amazing, and the 3D is spectacular. It is a conversion. Duh. The guys in the trenches did not, the cameramen in World War I carried these big wooden boxes, and they hand-cranked film. It's a miracle we have anything. And it is astounding. It is spectacular. It is beautiful. If you have a chance to see this, what are you listening to this for? Go watch it now. It's amazing. This is a must-see, and I would say 3D it. It is well worth your time. It is a beautiful work, and it is a great documentary telling the history of World War I from the view of the grunts who were on the bottom of the ladder fighting, and it's from the point of the view of the people who were on the front, the heart of the war. Now, Bob, some of the footage, did you recognize where some of it originated from?
Some of it was taken from what is actually the first war documentary ever made, The Battle of the Somme, by Geoffrey Malins, who actually went up and had built himself a position to film some of this footage. Most of the footage I had never seen, or if I had seen it, I couldn't see too much of it because it was either faded out or it was too dark. And with modern technology, doing some of the tricks we can do with film now to preserve it and to restore it, it's just incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was amazeballs. The color is if all colorization looked like this, people would clamor for it. There wouldn't be this screaming about it. It looked absolutely gorgeous. And then you hear all the they had recorded all these interviews in the 60s and 70s with the vets of World War One. And all of these people have sadly passed on because this war ended 100 years ago. And they told their stories, and they were put together in a compelling narrative that was very riveting and moving and heartfelt. I mean, this is like one of the best war documentaries I have ever seen. You'll smile, you'll cringe, you'll gasp. And this is R-rated material, so I would not bring the little kiddos. Your teenagers, there are a lot of dead bodies. This is war. World War I was one of the bloodiest wars in history. So there is a lot of carnage. Some battles there wasn't much footage, so they used kind of even more Ken Burns-like techniques and used the images from War Illustrated and did the Ken Burns technique for documentary to make it move. I mean, if you've seen a Ken Burns documentary, you know, or Robert Altman did for the James Dean story, you know, the macro lens. These will really, I mean, this brings photographs and illustrations to life in a cinematic way. And Peter Jackson really did that for this movie. They're promoting this as Peter Jackson's first documentary. That's not 100% true. You might remember that mockumentary he made years and years ago, Forgotten Silver. This isn't Forgotten Silver. This is 100% true. This is. Have we said amazing enough? Have we said enough hyperboles? This gets a 10 out of 10 for me, and strong 3D recommended.
There's no jingoism. You'll understand motivations for enlisting. Once they enlisted, realizing what they got themselves into, and then realizing that what was being said at home wasn't necessarily what was going on. And then the problems some of them had to adapting to coming back and trying to tell people what their conditions were like, and nobody really wanted to listen. It's an incredible piece of film, and I highly recommend it.
Yeah, there was some great stuff. I mean, even from and anybody who's familiar with Peter Jackson's early film career knows he goes there. And they even had 3D images of troops using outdoor loos. And you will never look at a telephone pole the same way again. You will laugh, because you will know what they used to use them for. Or a telegraph pole, I should say, at the time. This is before the telephone was really everywhere. Well, that's it for our coverage of They Shall Not Grow Old. If you have a chance to see this in the theater in 3D, take it. It's well worth your time.
Thank you.
All right, before this podcast ends, I want to give a thank you to my patrons. Right now, we have one patron, which is David from Spain, and I want to thank you for your financial support.
All right, so that's going to be it for this podcast.
We now have a Patreon, and the link is in the description. Thanks for watching.
And we are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, a little bit everywhere. Just look for us, 3D or 2D. And of course, review us on iTunes. And if you want to write us a letter, our email address is email3d or2d@gmail.com. So that's going to be it. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye, everyone.